Hello, hello. Welcome to Media Queen TV. We have two of the directors of Conjunction Realty with us today. We have David Bugeja and Glenn Hankinson. And today we're going to talk about it's time for change in the real estate industry. Now, also the other director, Brian Washbourne's not able to be with us today. We're sending him our well wishes over the other side of the world right now. And we're going to chat about why it's time for change and why Conjunction Realty are really standing out with what they're doing at the moment with their abundance mentality and the whole approach they're taking to the real estate industry. So starting out today, let's chat with David firstly. So David, if you could tell us please a little bit about your background and how you got into Conjunction Realty.
Well, firstly, hello viewers. Although I got involved in real estate in the year 2000, I first got involved with finance, and I really enjoyed it. But after about sort of 3 to 6 months, I found that I was enjoying the property side of things a lot more than the finance side of things. So, yeah, just within a few months, I just really enjoyed the. There's a lot of different areas and aspects to real estate. I just absolutely love it as an industry. I really do.
Yeah, and you've always been involved in one way or another, haven't you? Personally, with investments and helping others with investments as well.
Yeah, I actually bought my first property when I was a young guy. I think around 21, 22, bought my first property. So I got off to a really good start actually, and then I made the mistake of probably listening to someone that I probably shouldn't have at the time. Sold that property, and then I actually got caught in the rent trap for about 10 years, but eventually got back in, and it's been a pretty wild ride ever since. I love the investing side of things, so I've gone down the investment property journey and got myself a few investment properties along the way, and things have just evolved. And Conjunction Realty we were at a point where we had lots and lots of investment clients that wanted to from time to time need or want to sell their properties. So we decided to set up an a real estate company, and to be able to better serve the needs of our clients when they decided it was time to sell. And what we found out there was that when traditionally when investors want to sell their properties, most agents, not all agents, but the vast majority of agents will tell their clients, well, when does your lease end? Let's get rid of your tenant so we can sell the thing empty. But for a lot of investors, they don't want that because the cash flow is important to them. So the way that we like to do things is we like to keep if at all possible, keep the tenants in place, and we like to sell. We try and focus on selling investment properties to investors, and then everybody wins. The new investor that buys gets a tenant already in place. The tenants get to stay, and the seller gets to enjoy cash flow till the day that the property settles. So we like to do things differently to most other agencies.
Amazing. And Glenn, can you tell us a bit of your background, please?
Hey, thanks, Aldwyn. Thanks for having us on today. Yes, look, my background's come from the education industry. I was deputy principal in schools for the better part of 2 or 3 decades. But where my specialty was around obviously working with kids, parents, staff, and working with systems in schools. And my property journey began the better part of, certainly from an investing perspective, over 10 years ago. And David and I were good mates for many years before that. And I could see the goals he was kicking in the industry and the number of people he was helping in the industry. And that was just growing and growing. And what happened was, one area of the business just continued to grow, and they needed some support to, develop systems for the business, look after the more of the clients that they were being able to help in the property space. So I came on board, and it wasn't long after that I pulled the pin on the education job, not because of anything negative, but it was just it was time for change for me as well, and it worked out well. It's the best move I've ever made, and I've spent the better part of 7 years now working full time with the guys, and it's a great industry to be in. Love the difference we get to make in the lives of the people that we serve.
Fantastic. And I love what you've done with Conjunction Realty. You're breaking ground with never before seen 60-40% commission split to other agencies, which is just unheard of. And what was it that inspired this idea or this abundance mentality approach?
Well, what we've found, Aldwyn, is that often as a real estate agency, you list a property, but in a lot of cases, sometimes you'll have a real estate agent from a different agency that might have a potential buyer for your client's property. So I'm not saying this happens all the time, but a lot of the times when agents get new listings, especially, they don't want to entertain working in or conjuncting with other agents or agencies. But we decided to do things differently. And when we list a property, we make that property available to all agents across Australia, and we offer a 60-40 commission split from day one. So we can better serve our clients that way, because we're making it easier for sellers to sell and a lot easier for buyers to buy. Because oftentimes too, there's buyers out there that they have good, trusted relationships in place with certain agents, and if they can go to their preferred agent and still get access to their property, well, that's a win for all of us. They get to keep those relationships in place. So it's great for the buyers, great for the agents, because they get to serve their clients rather than miss out on the sale. So everybody wins. It's great for the seller because they get access to more buyers in an easier way. So it's just a win for everybody all around. But you do have to have that abundance mentality, because if you're as an agent that gets scared about where am I going to get my next listing from, you're going to be less likely to want to share. But the Australian property market is a phenomenal market. It's a really healthy industry. There's more than enough out there for all of us. So I just think it's time that we collaborate more and compete less and collaborate more, and we work for the greater good of everybody and put people over profits.
I love that. And when you put people over profits, the profits will naturally come anyway. So it's
less of a lot more is still more of a lot less.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And really putting your clients first and actually putting the community first as well. What is best for the wider community? It's not just about about your insular thing you're doing. It's really how you can contribute. I love that about Conjunction Realty. And you do have an office in Varsity Lakes. You've got one in Mackay as well, and you're growing Australia wide at the moment. And this is very exciting. You're at a fast growing situation at the moment. And, we've seen a lot of interesting things happen in the market lately. We saw a big boom here happen on the Gold Coast, through COVID. It was really interesting that some people panicked and thought the prices were going to crash and got out of property. And then meanwhile, others, we just saw a massive rise in property. It's really about that supply and demand, isn't it? One thing I've noticed on the Gold Coast is so many people coming in now from Melbourne, Sydney after the lockdowns, right? It's like they've all been let out of jail and they've come, they're just heading north for the sunshine. And so what have you noticed? What have you noticed with what's happening with the actual market at the moment?
Oh, look, I'll start off, mate. Yeah, and you're right, Aldwyn. Like with the onset of COVID, it taught people in the concrete jungles that you can do a lot of stuff from home. And if people have got a choice to work from home, and look, there's great parts about Melbourne and Sydney. It's not to dish on them; they're wonderful cities. But there's a certain number of people that that's where their work is. But for a lot of those people who want a much more temperate and tropical climate, the Gold Coast is fantastic, or Southeast Queensland. And so the number of people that are now deciding to work remotely, and then they go, okay, well, if we can work remotely, then we're not tied to have to be where we live. We can move, and we're finding that a lot of our certainly over the last 12 months, I guess, 12 to 18 months, people coming in from interstate. I know the stats. Queensland's net growth post COVID was a net positive growth, whereas Sydney and Melbourne both had negative net growths post COVID. So the stats prove it, and it's a great time for the property market in Queensland.
Yeah, and plus all the people coming from overseas as well, right? Seems to be a whole lot of South Americans here on the Gold Coast as well at the moment. They're just everywhere, it's insane. So, definitely the floodgates have opened. People have seen how beautiful it is here in southeast Queensland. And I think lifestyle is much more important now for people than anything else, because I think we've seen through COVID how fragile life is, right? As many people have dropped away, and we've lost a lot of, friends and family over the last few years unexpectedly. I know quite a few of my friends just died suddenly, heart attacks mainly, in their 50s, that you wouldn't expect. For all sorts of reasons, no doubt. However, interesting times we're in. So, David, what are your thoughts about the current trends and movement into Queensland?
I mean, not that this show is just about, all about southeast Queensland, but I think if you look at southeast Queensland and you think, well, where else in the world do you get a setup where you've got a city as beautiful and the size of Brisbane? And then where else do you get a place where you've got something similar to the Gold Coast and something similar to the Sunshine Coast, all within, a 3-4 hour drive of each other? So it's very, very, southeast Queensland is a very unique situation. You've got these beautiful places all so close together with an incredible climate. So I think what COVID did was it put Australia on the map worldwide. And I think COVID put southeast Queensland on the map Australia-wide. So it's just become a far more coveted place to live and work because the temperatures are so good, the lifestyles are just so incredible. Even though it's a really, really healthy size, it's still remarkably easy to get around, park. And if you compare how easy it is getting around southeast Queensland to places like Sydney and Melbourne, it's amazing. I mean, I'm notoriously famous for losing my car in car parks and all sorts of wonderful things. But it's just such a great lifestyle it's just an incredible lifestyle, a beautiful place to live, and more people are discovering that,
Yeah, absolutely. Where else can you go with the 37 kilometres of beaches we've got on the Gold Coast too? It's absolutely stunning, and that's something that definitely drew me to the Gold Coast. I love the beach, and I've been here 23 years now on the Gold Coast and absolutely love it. And as much as I travel, that's the beauty. You can travel, you can always come back home to the Gold Coast or actually anywhere in Australia. In fact, there's so many beautiful parts of Australia. I grew up in the northern beaches area of Sydney. That is also incredibly stunning. The north and the southern beaches of Sydney are also incredibly beautiful, and parts of Melbourne are stunning as well. And we've got Adelaide, Perth. I mean, really, you can find majestic places right around Australia, and I think that's why also the property market, I think, is going to stay solid from what I see, because we have a shortage of property, we have a shortage of houses, right? And have you found that more of an issue as well, that really we're going to have this big issue, particularly with the Olympics coming to Brisbane, for example, 2032. They're saying, actually predicting an influx of 400,000 overseas migrants over the next 2 years, just on the Gold Coast, right? And then meanwhile, Brisbane as well will rise. And I think right across Australia, we saw it with the Sydney Olympics as well. Sydney prices just went through the roof around that time, and it's been consistently high, hasn't it, really, in Sydney and Melbourne. What have you seen?
I remember we come across some really interesting information around about sort of 6 to 12 months before COVID came out. We come across some information from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and it talked about, in this article, it talked about how southeast Queensland needed 610 homes a week to be built every week for the next 20 years just to keep up with population growth. And I really latched onto that information, and all COVID did, and the announcement of the 2032 Olympics, that's just made the numbers even bigger. So, and you can't have growth like that without, serious price growth as well. So I personally believe that this is going to be probably one of the biggest booms in southeast Queensland history, because it's like everything's just coming together at the same time. So there's there's massive amounts of demand and an undersupply.
And in that report, they talked about the amount of infrastructure, and the Queensland government's, planning well in advance, and they're spending a phenomenal amount of money on infrastructure over the next 10 years. And with that infrastructure, someone has to build it, and they've got to employ people and bring people into the region, and that's going to continue to put a blowtorch on the need for more properties. And so, as David said, we're just going to see a good continued growth There'll be pockets where things go up and down a little bit as the property market does, but for a good, leading up into that time frame, yeah.
But it is a bit of a double-edged sword, Aldwyn, because I mean, for people who own property, it's great news to hear about your property prices, continuing to rise. But if you look at, the demographic of people who don't have any property, who want to get into property, it does make it harder for them to get in. And, rising rents is a fantastic thing for people who own investment properties, especially when interest rates are going up. But then rising rents are a pain for tenants. So no matter what happens in the market, there's always a percentage of people that are going to be better off because of it, and a percentage of people are going to be worse off because of it. So it is a bit of a double-edged sword. You just got to try and learn how to roll with the punches. And for anyone out there who wants to get into property and make a success of property, you've got to get around and start listening to people that know what they're talking about when it comes to the property market to do well. I mean, one of the biggest negative aspects about property is that because we all live in properties, everybody has an opinion and everybody's an expert with property. So you do have to be careful who you listen to and who you don't listen to when it comes to, learning about real estate and how you can do well out of it, or at least get into it in some way, shape or form.
Yes, absolutely. And I've heard quite a few times, even just in the last week, people saying, there's nowhere to rent. There's nowhere to rent at the moment, right? There seems to be this common thing going around. There's nowhere to rent. And so if there's nowhere to rent for a lot of people that are potentially tenants, a lot of them, I'm sure, would be getting creative with their finances, or maybe, looking at ways that they can purchase, right? You would think, because how else are they going to get in the market if there's nowhere to rent? Then, more people you would think would be working on getting financially creative to buy property, right?
I mean, it's exactly what happened with one of our latest sales was, our agent had a buyer who couldn't get into the rental market, and, the money she was going to be paying in that space, she was able to, pick up one of our properties and get into the market. Oh. So she started out as looking to rent, but struggled, and then, worked out very quickly that she was in a position where she could do so, but she decided that she'd buy rather than rent.
Just quickly on that note, Aldwyn, for the viewers out there that may be in a situation where they're looking for rental and struggling, just one little tip. If you're prepared to offer 3 months rent up front or 4 months rent up front, that does tend to make a big difference, and it does look very good on your application. So you've got to think outside the box a bit sometimes as well. And again, get tips from people that know what they're talking about how you can try and work your way up the list when it comes to rental applications. There's always a way.
That's true. Think creatively. I actually had one tenant who offered me 6 months in advance. I'd never had that, to actually just rent a room, right? 6 months in advance. And I later found out this guy was actually incredibly dodgy, and police have come looking for him since he's left the property. So I found that very interesting. Whereas while he was at the property, he was fairly okay. He was kind of fairly quiet, but he had a lot of issues with his ex-partner and things that, and he moved up from Melbourne, interestingly. So, and I wouldn't have thought that there was anything dodgy. I thought, well, that's great. He wants to pay 6 months in advance. And in fact, that's why I chose him at the time. And he seemed okay. I checked references. He seemed okay. But, I think definitely being creative is important now.
And look, Aldwyn, I told you not to mention that, and we had that between us. You weren't supposed to bring that up today. Sorry, no, just kidding. It wasn't me.
Oh, sorry, a bit late now, right? We are live. And hello to all our live viewers. Great to see you.
That's right. Whoops.
Jason Grossman, let's just change the subject. Jason Grossman's in the house. Hello, Jason. Good to see you. The Queen of Networking, he calls me. Thank you. That's very, very kind of you, Jason. Jason, amazing guy here on the Gold Coast. You might want to check him out. Jeff Veal also is here. Question, who can afford them? Who can afford them? Well, that's a very interesting question, Jeff. Who can afford them? Or perhaps the question is, how can you afford a property? Because I know some people have bought property with no money down. I've heard of these no money down strategies, right? There's all sorts of ways you can partner up with people too and do joint ventures, and right there's and I'm sure Glenn and David, I'm sure you've both seen some creative strategies in your time, right? Is there any that you could share?
Well, all I can say is one thing, which is where there's a will, there's a way. And I know that when I was looking to get back into the market, I had because there's normally two things that the bank want, which is one which is called a deposit, and one which is serviceability. And I had the serviceability, but I had no money at the time. But yeah, in my situation, I ended up offering a deal to one of my brothers and my parents. I needed some money, and I offered them interest at a rate that was higher than the bank. And I just looked to create a win-win situation where they were going to be better off if they loaned me the money than if they didn't, and I was going to be able to get a property that I couldn't get without them. So where there's a will, there's a way. It's about trying to create win-win situations where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes, yes. And what about you, Glenn? What have you seen?
Oh, look, I'll just go off on a slightly different tangent to that. But one thing I was going to mention earlier is one of the things that I guess the glue that has bound Dave and I together over our 20 plus years, it's been nearly 30 years now as mates, has been a very common interest and dedication to improving mindset. And you talked about before about this abundance mentality, but that's just one part of having a good mindset. I know in our we've talked about a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey, and David's mentioned a couple of times already today this concept of win-win. And Covey has that as his 4th habit, is think win-win. But it's more about not just a strategy. It's actually a mindset, and it's a way that people live. And the one thing that we do at Conjunction Realty, very well together, is have this win-win approach. And David talked about it before. Is that that there's a win for tenants, there's a win for sellers, and there's a win for agents. When we're talking about what we do here at Conjunction Realty. So there's always a way, and one thing that David's a master at is looking for those win-win strategies or approaches. And if plan A doesn't work, we'll go to plan B. If plan B doesn't work, we go through to plan C, D, until we get all the way around back to plan A1. So it's less of a matter of I guess it's more will rather than the ability to actually be able to get into it.
Yeah. Aldwyn, one thing that's helped me along the way is I don't know where I heard it from or who said it, but I heard this quote, and it said that it's never a lack of money that's the problem. It's never a lack of time that's the problem. It's the lack of an idea that's the problem. So you're only ever one idea away from being able to do what you want to do. It's not time and money. It's a lack of an idea.
Yes, it's not about resources. It's about resourcefulness, right? The same kind of concept. Yes, I love that. Absolutely.
And look, I can remember when I didn't have the resources and didn't have, I didn't have the idea. That was the last thing I wanted to hear someone tell me. Don't be telling me it's lack of an idea. It's all right for you. You've got the resources. But I remember sitting at a very, very poorly run down house many years ago, where a decade ago or more, and I was just living there very temporarily, and I remember sitting there with Dave, and he said, there's two things you can do, to get ahead. You can either spend less or make more. I didn't like the concept of spending less. So I decided to look at ways to make more. And and back, that was years and years ago. That was back when I was as a deputy principal. And I remember we came up with an agreement where we, I bought myself in partnership with David, a zero-turn mower that was able to get into properties, into gates, so that I could go in and mow properties on the weekends and after school, just in such a short amount of time, because it was a zero-turn mower that you could actually get into a normal gate and actually do the job way quicker. So I could do a lot more in a lot less time. But it's that concept of it's just a lack of an idea. So.
Yes, I love that. I've been to a lot of property seminars over the years, and I've learned from a lot of these so-called, gurus. And, some people do options down on property, and then there's the whole, rent to buy strategy, and then there's the Airbnb strategy, and, so many things that people do. In fact, I know some people that rent, and they rent rooms out through Airbnb, and they make more money from the Airbnb than they do that they're paying rent. So they're basically getting free rent. And, so that's a great way that people could start to build up a savings to actually be able to purchase their own property as well. It's very interesting. Are you finding many people asking about the rent to buy strategies or any of these kind of options, putting options down on the property or anything like that?
No, not really. All I mean, our main focus is just doing the best job we can for our sellers and making sure that we get the highest prices possible in the shortest possible time for our sellers. But we'll help as many people as we can. But there's just more than one way to skin a cat. There's where there's a will, there's a way, and it's just if someone's got the right mindset, they'll always find a way to get what they want eventually. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Sometimes it's incredibly hard. And I won't bore you with some of my stories, but yeah, to me, attitude's the most important thing as far as that goes. Having the right attitude, and it all goes from there.
And relationships are so important too, aren't they? And I know you've had some phenomenal success stories with your clients. Would you like to maybe share one or two of your success stories?
Oh, there's so many of them. Do you want to kick off first, Glenn? I just got to get my mind thinking properly.
Well, I'll prompt you because, and you know the story better than me. What was a great outcome for was, I think it was Janet with the property across the road, down at Palm Beach.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so just a recent example, Aldwyn, we had one of my friends and neighbours had a property that he wanted to sell. It was in a particular street on the Gold Coast, and one of our agents, Janet, had the listing, and the buyer for that property actually lived straight across the road from that property. So she woke up every morning, and one of the first things she saw was our sign. But interestingly enough, she never actually come to us. She never approached us. She never rung us. She rung her preferred agent, and that agent reached out to us and asked us if we would consider conjuncting, and we said absolutely, we conjunct from day one at 60/40. He couldn't believe that, and as a result of that, the sale went through. We had a very, very happy buyer, a happy seller. It's just everybody won. But if we weren't prepared to share the love or conjunct or work in together, that wouldn't have transpired. She got to keep that relationship with her preferred agent. They got to strengthen their relationship, so everybody won.
I love that. Yeah, great example. And there was one in Mackay you mentioned too a while ago.
Recent one in Mackay where we had a very dear friend of mine who had got a triplex in Mackay, was looking to sell, and we listed the property, and I said to him, we're looking for really premium pricing here. So sometimes it happens quickly. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to get the right buyer. But cut a long story short, after about, I think around about the 8 or 9 month mark, we ended up getting him a record price. We got 390,000 each for these 3 particular apartments. And for where they were and what they are, it was a record price. I think the previous best of that was around about 320, 325 for the same type of product. So absolutely brilliant outcome. But that's what happens when you've got good relationships with people. You can get them to hang in there, trust you, and just believe in the process. And yeah, a really, really awesome result. In fact, the seller was from Sydney, and the people who bought the property, it was a mother who bought 2 for herself, and then her son bought the 3rd one, and they were from Sydney as well. So it was Sydney all around in that particular case. But that sort of stuff happens all the time with us, yeah.
I was talking to someone in Sydney yesterday, actually a buyer's agent, just yesterday. I said, what's the average unit price now in Sydney? He was from the Coogee Bondi area. And he said, between about 1.2 to 1.6 million for a two-bedroom unit in Sydney. And I thought to myself, well, no wonder so many people are coming up to the Gold Coast to get a house for that price and get quite a nice house for that price, right, on the Gold Coast. I know prices are going up too in this area, and like northern New South Wales. Byron Bay's gone through the roof. Some of those northern New South Wales areas have really shot up as well. And yet Melbourne's still a really strong market too, isn't it? Melbourne's really strong as well. A lot of people coming into Melbourne as well. And it's still one of the most livable cities, even through all the drama through COVID. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I think when people come in from overseas, one of their favourite spots is Melbourne, that's for sure. It's got a very diverse population. There's lots of fantastic places to live in Australia. It's an incredible place.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what excites us, Aldwyn, is that this concept that we've been able to develop here is rare across the country. And we've got the potential to impact the industry and shine light on a better way for the whole industry Australia wide. And I guess that's what excites us. Yes, property is great in Australia, and we've all got can remember stories of our parents telling us how good property was, and if they had got in there or whatever. But property in Australia is fantastic, and so but what we're super excited about is our ability to make a change in the industry that hasn't been seen before.
Yeah, on that note, Aldwyn, look, I talk to a lot of agents and a lot of agencies all the time, and it's just amazing to me how many stories I hear about even different agents within the same business, all the infighting and we get on better with a lot of agents and agencies. We get on better than most people do, and most agents do within the same agents in the same office. It's unbelievable. So. Well, it's just a really, really nice way to grow a business, is to just help people and teach people. We're better off collaborating for the greater good than competing with each other, because there's plenty more than enough out there for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. 133,000 real estate agents in Australia. 133,000. Wouldn't it be great if everyone had this abundance mentality, right? I mean, what would that do for the community?
Yeah, we're going to see if we can change that one sale at a time, or one conjunction at a time.
Yes. I love that. That's fantastic. Let's talk more about these habits of highly successful people. I love, Glenn, you've gone right down this path. Could you share some of the other habits that you would recommend for our community here on highly successful in life?
Well, it's interesting. If you want to check it out, it's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's only sold about 50 million copies worldwide, so he's getting a bit of a go on. But look, without going through all 7, and it's a bit, if you said to a parent, "I've got 2 beautiful daughters, and who's your favourite daughter?" Well, you can't pick one. But out of the 7 habits, if I was to pick one, it's definitely habit 5. And I guess as a way to live, it's probably something that I really try to, it's not easy. And David's sitting right here, and I know that he'll go, "Oh, geez, I don't know that you're an expert at that yet." But, and it's about seeking first to understand before then be understood. And it's that concept of listen with the intent to understand the other person, not necessarily with the intent to reply. And I think if every single person in your next conversation with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, with your teenage daughter, with whoever it is, if you went into that conversation with the intent to try to understand where that person's coming from, rather than running through your own script in your head with a reply on the tip of your tongue, as soon as they shut up, you can jump in with your reply or your advice or whatever it is you want to say, but talk about seek first to understand. Covey in the book talks about a story about he's obviously from America, but the indigenous Indian tribes in America had a concept called the Indian talking stick, where the elders would sit around in a circle, and the person with the stick was the only person that was allowed to talk. And only when that person was satisfied that everyone else in the circle truly understood their point of view, then they could pass the stick on. And what's interesting about that is that it has to be that the person who's doing the talking feels that they've been understood. So, there's a whole bunch of concepts there, but I guess that's one of the things that I love doing in this industry. We get to work with people. People say, "Look, you've come from a very diverse background from education. It's a big change to get into real estate." For me, not really. I mean, in education, I was working with attitudes of people, helping people, supporting people, making a difference in people's lives. That's all we do here. Whether it's with agents, whether with working with agents who work directly with buyers and sellers, we're all on about connecting and making a difference in the lives of other people. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, step number 1 is to seek first to understand.
Yes, so important. And that involves listening. And they say we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, so that we listen twice as much as we speak, right? And that's quite, it's quite art. It's quite an art form to really listen, really hear people, right?
For all the education ministers out there who may be listening, we're very, very good in schools at teaching kids how to write. We teach them how to read. We even have a curriculum on speaking and teaching them how to speak and orate well. There is no curriculum on how to listen.
Yes, how interesting. Yes, well, it is an art form, and it's something that's not generally encouraged, and so people often, when people are speaking, the other person's thinking, well, what can they say before the person's even finished speaking? And so to really get people and to notice where you get triggered in life too, right? What is it that when someone says something, you get triggered straight away without maybe there's been some miscommunication there, and miscommunication happens all the time. I've noticed, right? And it's something that is a constant challenge, I think, to make sure that people really get what you're saying, and maybe if they're not getting what you're saying, maybe you're not communicating it in a way that they get what you're saying, so that is really a whole art form in itself. And I think it's a really important part of building relationships in any business, and with what you do, particularly really building relationship with the biggest purchase people are generally going to make is in property. And so really building that trust for people to trust you in actually finding them a good property or selling the property at a good price, that's also going to be good for the buyer as well. Having that win-win scenario for people to trust you is massive. And
it's interesting. Covey's son wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and he talks about trust being a combination of both character and competence. And so whenever you're whatever industry you're looking at, but especially this particular industry, you're looking for people who have the character and integrity behind them, but also the competence. And he talks about if you had to go and see a surgeon, do you want one with character or do you want one with competence? And he said, well, it depends. If I'm asking whether or not if I should have the surgery, I want one with character to tell me the right thing. If I am having the surgery, I want one with competence. Obviously, it's best to have both. And so it's a combination of character and competence.
Yes. And I think you need a certain amount of experience too to know what you're talking about when it comes to real estate as well. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have just come out of school and they're selling real estate and they've probably never owned real estate. Whereas with all of you, you're actually been investors. You've been on the court. You've been investing and selling yourselves in your own lives, so you can actually speak from experience of having been in there in the trenches, doing exactly what you're promoting.
Yeah, I think it certainly gives us a different perspective, because we can look at real estate from a number of different angles, because we are investors as well. We know what investors want. We've been buyers, we've been sellers, we've been tenants. So, we have the ability to look at things from a whole bunch of different angles. And I think that allows us to be able to help people more effectively and more efficiently.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's absolutely crucial. And we do have a press release we've done for more details about Conjunction Realty. I'm going to pop that link in the chat here so you can find out a bit more background about these guys. So if people do want to list a property with you, what's the process for them to do that?
Glenn?
Well, look, we've got, if you just jump onto our website at www.conjunctionrealty.com, you can obviously just get in touch with someone here at the office. But our agents are fantastic. They can actually once a person sends them just the address where they're at, our agents now can get a price estimate, just a rough price estimate, back to the person in a 3-page PDF document with current stats, current recently sold, current data within 3 to 5 minutes tops, straight back to them on their phone. And it's an incredibly quick and easy process. They don't have to ring the person. Just text the number through to one of our agents, text their address, and they can actually get back to them with a rough price estimate with backed up data from some of the real estate portals. And then obviously to move forward, it'll mean that they just need to catch up and have a look through the property for 5 or 10 minutes in person if that's something that the vendor's looking to move ahead with. and then they can go ahead and we can get the property on the market. And look, there's a number of ways we can do that. Our agents, that they can even look at a $0 marketing process where the vendor doesn't even have to look at putting any money down straight away, and we can get the property sold because we have such good communication and good networks with buyers agents all around the country. We can sell properties without even going into the big real estate portals necessarily. So there's a whole bunch of pathways we can go.
Oh, fantastic. Sounds like a great process. So check out the website for those watching. Here it is right here, conjunctionrealty.com. And you can check out the press release on my website, aaxpose.com. And in the news section there, you will find the press release. And you'll see a lovely photo there of Brian as well in that press release there, the photo. So yeah, that is awesome. Well, it's exciting times. It's exciting times for the buyers and the sellers and for everyone in property. One thing's for sure is people will always need a roof over their head at some point. And I mean, we know that, obviously homelessness is a growing issue as well. That is something that has been there, I think, since the beginning of time, and most likely will continue to be there moving forward. However, for those who do empower themselves in the real estate game, I think you're setting yourself up for a bright future. And the more that you do empower yourself in this area, the more you can help others as well who might be less fortunate. And I've certainly helped a lot of people with my property, help people who really needed somewhere to stay, etc. And I'm very blessed that I've been able to, to help with that. Some of them have been less desirable than others, and some of them I wish I hadn't let in. But we give them a chance. We give them a chance, don't we? And that's something you can do if you've empowered yourself in this area. And one of the hardest things probably for a lot of people is just getting into the market in the first place for the buyers, right? And then for the sellers, for the sellers, what are the biggest challenges right now facing the sellers? Would you say?
Biggest challenge for well, they want to make sure that they're working with a company who has got their best interests at heart. It's unfortunate that there's this concept in the real estate business where it's called conditioning, where sometimes agents will just they'll let people think, or whatever price someone may want, even if it's a ridiculously high price, they may let that person think that that's attainable. And then once they get the business, they'll start to work on the seller and condition them down on pricing. I just hate that word and I hate that concept. So you want to be, be working with an agent that you get along well with. That they're good at what they do. They've got plenty of integrity. And to me, it's important. You want to enjoy the process. I mean, it can take some time. So if you can get a fantastic result and have a really highly enjoyable time from beginning to end, I think that's a fantastic situation. So we always try and have as much fun as possible along the way. Sometimes you've got to have the occasional awkward conversation, but you want to pick someone that you can trust, you get along with. They've got good experience, good reviews, and you can't really go wrong if you do that. And make sure that they're willing to conjunct from day one, willing to share the love, so that way you can maximise your opportunities.
Yes, I love that. And you have signs that say contact us or your preferred agent, right? Which is something else that's very unusual.
Yeah, a lot of agents see that and think we're absolutely mad, but we've got to do what we say and say what we do.
Yeah, I love it. And it definitely helps you stand out in the industry. I love the whole "it's time for change" motto that you have, and this whole abundance mentality. I really love that. I think that the more we can step into that, embrace abundance. There really is an abundance for everyone out there, and it's about whatever you believe to be true, you will prove that it's true. Whatever your belief is, right? So what is it that you're believing to be true? Do you have an abundance mentality, or do you have a scarcity mentality? And just notice, are you always whinging about things, or are you actually grateful for what you have in your life? And the more you're grateful for what you have, I believe, the more you'll be given to be grateful for, the more that you will attract a more abundance into your life. And I think this is absolutely crucial for life in general as well as business. So yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And Glenn, I know you've got a nice little love story. I don't know if you'd like to share that, but I think this is a little example of perhaps attracting, putting something out there and attracting attracting what you put out there. Would you like to share your little situation there?
Oh, possibly.
Okay.
Look, yeah, I've been, single for the better part of, nearly 14, 15 years, and spent a lot of that time as a single dad raising my daughters up in North Queensland, and I guess being in that area for a long time in leading schools and in the education industry. Yeah, the dating scene wasn't sort of on my cards up there at that time, and so I focused my time just on raising my daughters, getting them off to be independent young women in the world, and which is what they're doing now. And then so that was fine, and I'd been working remotely with the team up there for many years. And then I said to the guys down here where the office is, I said, look, once my daughters are off my hands and I get them up away and supported, I'll move down to the Gold Coast. So I did, and that was great. And sure enough, moved here, and my office here overlooks Bond University. And lo and behold, one thing led to another, and I met my new partner who is at Bond University. And turns out that 14 years ago we had both split up from our prospective partners on the same month, same year, and we were living in the same town in North Queensland at the time 14 years ago, but didn't know each other. And it took 14 years for me to move down here and her to follow her pathway, and for our offices to be overlooking each other. And it's just amazing. And it's been the whole time. I've got a good mate of mine who lives up north that was constantly up my ribs about moving forward. And I said, well, mate, when the time's right, it'll be right. And he just couldn't fathom my patience in that space, but it's certainly been well worth the wait.
Oh, that is such a beautiful story. I love that. And, how often do we try and rush things, right? Where really everything is in divine order, right? Everything is in divine order. That's such a beautiful story. And it's wonderful.
Yeah. Not one that I share often on live TV, but thank you for the opportunity.
No, well, I thought it's probably about time this little came out of the bag, because I thought it's just a lovely story, and it's proof that as you say, when the time's right, the time's right, and
and I guess the thing is, it's about not wasting all the time beforehand either. Like I wouldn't have changed anything for the time that I spent in all that time. It was about working on myself, making this, getting myself better. And just becoming, a person that who I am. And look, I've still got work to do as well. But it's about not sitting on your, not sitting on your hands, waiting and hoping for the universe to provide. Get out and do stuff and work on yourself and add value to yourself and others. And just have the faith that the universe will provide, and it's in due course.
Yes, all in divine timing, absolutely. And you've been together for a long time with your wife too, David, haven't you? What's the secret of your long, happy marriage?
I could tell you that, but it's probably not appropriate for on this stage.
How long's it been now? You've been married?
Look, I'd like to think that I'm an extremely easy person to live with, Aldwyn. And I'd like to think that my wife...
Aldwyn, Deborah has a lot of patience. That's the secret.
She has a...
Another story for another day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just backtracking for a second on the stuff that Glenn was talking about. I think where things can really go against people is if you get too caught up, like spending a lot of time watching the news. It's unbelievable. Like every single problem or challenge that seems to come up on the news, people look to the government to solve the problem. Like it doesn't matter what it is.
Yes.
It's just amazing to me how every problem is the government's fault. But if you understand, success, like I always teach my boys, there's only three types of people out there. There's winners who make things happen, average people who watch things happen, and losers who wonder what happened the one thing that all winners have in common is they make things happen. So when you have your problems and challenges, you're mad sitting back waiting, thinking that the government's going to, the government just doesn't have enough money, doesn't have enough time, doesn't have enough resources to solve everybody's problems. You got to, and if you study successful people, they're not just successful when certain governments are in power and then they're failures when other governments are in power. They work out a way to win no matter what. In fact, if you take that one step further and you look into this, you can go to some of the worst countries in the world, and if you look hard enough, you'll find successful people. And you can go to some of the best countries in the world, and Australia's one of them, if not the best, and you'll find people that are losing. It's not even the country, it's the attitude of the individual. You've got to take your own happiness is your own responsibility. Your happiness and your success is your own responsibility. There's a few exceptions to the rule, like some people are in situations where they can't help themselves, but for the vast majority of us, don't be waiting around, like other people to solve your problems. Get in there and work out ways to do it yourself.
Yes.
And it's not always going to be the government, and that concept of that blame mentality of blaming someone else. And I'll finish up with the there's a very it's a constant challenging quote out of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's a constant challenge for me, and it's a challenge for everyone. And he says that the minute that you think the problem is out there, that very thought is the problem.
Yes.
The minute you think the problem is out there with someone else external, that very thought is the problem. And I've had one of my very, very good friends just blatantly challenge me on that and we've gotten into quite some heated conversations. But eventually he came around, and that's not David. No, but So if it is to be, it's up to me. I think you were heading with Aldwyn, yes.
If it's to be, it's up to me, and absolutely, and it comes down to taking 100% responsibility for everything in your life. That's the really only powerful place to stand.
Well,
otherwise,
are you saying all the bad things I have to take responsibility for as well as the good things? What?
Everything.
I thought I'm just responsible for all the good things that have happened to me. Are you saying I have to be responsible for all the bad things as well?
Yeah, I do. When you look at quantum physics and what we put out, we get back. And so, yeah, absolutely. As much as it can be hard to admit or consume this information we're sharing right now, it's actually every thought is out in the universe. It's quantum science, quantum physics, right? We are such powerful manifestors, and I think doing the inner work is so important for success in all business. And, real estate, I would imagine, would be one of the most challenging industries to be in. And in fact, being in business is one of the most challenging things you'll ever do too, potentially, right? And so I think it's really important to have resilience. And this is why, the stats are, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And in the next 5 years, 80% of those surviving ones fail in the next 5 years. And, with the directors at Conjunction Realty, it's 100 years experience in real estate, which is massive. What an amazing team for people to put their trust into if they want to, sell property or buy property. What an amazing amount of experience. And it just goes to show how much stamina you all have, the change makers, the directors, and the rest of your team as well. I think we worked it out about 200 years experience with the rest of your team as well, if we add all that up together. So that is just absolutely massive. And I know a lot of this discussion around personal development and around how we do life, I think it's the foundation of everything else. It is like building the foundation of a house. Everything stems from there. And how important has that been, in fact, for you? And do you have daily practices that keep you empowered in your life? For, say, David, we'll go to you.
Well, I think we're lucky there. I mean, we're all the entire team is sort of drawn together with some common values, as in we all love the concept of self-improvement. We've got quotes and sayings all over our walls, on our business cards. So we're all just so aware of this, and yeah, it's just a really fantastic thing. Glenn, do you want to jump on there?
Yeah, look, the concept of do we have practices? there isn't a day barely that goes by that every single day I don't wake up, revise, reread my personal mission in life, go through what my vision is for my life, and then read through my prioritized set of values every single morning. And it's like a set of glasses that I put on in the morning, and it's so powerful. So you imagine, waking up every morning and reviewing that, and every single interaction that you see the world through for the rest of that day is through your value set. So if I was to challenge people with one thing, is number one, ask yourself, what do you stand for? What are your values? And what don't you stand for? And there's a large number of people that actually everyone knows, those things, what they stand for and what they don't stand for, but go through the process of really sitting down and thinking about them and identifying what are the highest priority ones, what are the absolute line in the sand ones that you're never going to falter on, and put them in front of you, and make sure that that's what you wake up to every morning before you're checking an email, before you send a text message, before anything. Put those glasses on and see the world through what's valuable. What are your values, and the difference it'll make in your daily life is incredible.
It's like a compass, isn't it? It's like setting the compass so you actually know where you're going, because how many people it's like Groundhog Day. They just keep doing the same old. And if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you nowhere, basically.
I think we're very lucky, Aldwyn. I mean, we tend to attract who we are. So our entire team, we're all sort of drawn together. We just think the same in terms of wanting to help people, putting our clients first. So we just have a great time working together, and it just works out really, really well. It's just a lovely way to spend your life, is just working with great people with really good morals and ethics and values.
And it's a very stable company too, because actually the three directors, you've all known each other for a long time too, right? How long have you all known each other?
Well, I think I've been mates with Glenn. I think we worked out 19. I think we met in 1995.
23. I think it'll be 27 years. Yeah, or 28 years.
In 95, I'm pretty sure. And then me and Brian, it's been maybe a few years less. But yeah, I mean, I think it's phenomenal to be able to work with your mates. I'm always looking, and everybody in the whole entire team, they're all brought together through relationships. There's sort of no one that we sort of picked off off the street. We're all connected in some way. It's really phenomenal.
Yeah, and that really does make a big difference, I think, with a company when you've got that solid foundation of friendship that has lasted the test of time. In fact, you've probably known each other as friends longer than a lot of relationships have lasted out there. So that's saying a lot. I think the average relationship is probably about 7 years nowadays. They're 7 year itch, right? And 60% of marriages end in divorce. And you're
all. It is remarkable. I'm very proud of that as well.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and it really is a great dynamic that you have in your office and with your team as well. When we did the group photo with the whole team, it's a really fantastic feel that you've got with the company, and I'm absolutely sure you guys are going to have such great success moving forward, going Australia wide with what you're doing, with this abundance mentality that is so important in the real estate industry, and in fact right across life, to have a greater experience of life. I think it's just so important, and it's just been so great to get to know you better as we're working together. It's just been wonderful. So any final words today? We're almost been chatting for an hour. Can you believe that? We just chat away, just like having a chat over a coffee or stronger drink. Time for
I'll start off to finish off. So thanks, Aldwyn. Yeah, look, the key thing for me in life and business and what we do is that seek first to understand, and always listen with the intent to understand the other person, whether that's, in a relationship, or whether that's in business, or whether it's listening to a vendor about what they want to do with their property. And I'll finish with, look, if you're in the real estate space and you're an agent out there that wants to connect with people of a similar mindset, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Connect with us, whether it's from a conjunction point of view, or whether you want to, you're looking to maybe be part of the team that we've got going either here in Southeast Queensland or anywhere else in Australia. Don't hesitate to reach out and hit us up on socials, or jump on the website. And because it's about that concept that David's constantly talks about, that a rising tide lifts all ships. And so the more connections we can make with other people, the more we can help them, the more they can help us. So look forward to connecting with a lot more people. And thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Glenn. I love that. And final words from you, David.
That was very well said, Glenn. I just want to, I'm trying to be a good boy today, Aldwyn, for once. I'm trying to talk less and listen more.
Right. It's a practice.
I hope you've got a bit more of that today, but I just want to thank you very, very much for your time. Really appreciate your help, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've been chatting here today with David Bugeja and Glenn Hankinson from Conjunction Realty. They are two of the directors. We also have, as the other director, we have Brian Washbourne, who's not able to be with us here at this interview. However, we're sending him love across the world. They are known as the change makers. They are making waves across the industry with their abundance mentality approach. You can check out the latest press release on these guys in the aaexpos.com website right here, and check out their website. You might want to work with them if you have a property to list. Check these guys out. You will be opening up to the whole market when you go to Conjunction Realty, and you will definitely be increasing your chances of finding a suitable buyer for your property as well. So check it out there, conjunctionrealty.com, and follow the process, and also check out their Facebook page as well, Conjunction Realty. You'll find them on Facebook as well, and no doubt other social media moving forward. Thank you so much, David. Glenn, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you
for
very much.
watching. For those who've joined us, let us know, what did you get out of this interview today? What did you learn from this today? And for those who'd also like to connect with me, you can connect with me at a Linktree as well. I'll just pop that link in there, Linktree, linktr.ee/Aldwyn, or at my website, aaexpos.com. There it is there. And I stand for truth and good news. That's what I stand for. There's some of my highest values. And of course, integrity is a really big one as well that I talked about yesterday on the Global Good News Challenge. And I actually challenge you to share gratitude and good news and just see what happens. See how you feel when you get into gratitude and appreciate what you have in your life. You will definitely be given more to appreciate. Thank you so much once again. We will see you back soon here on Media Queen TV. Have a beautiful day or night wherever you are in the world. See you again.